What if I told you that the dish you've been ordering from your favorite Chinese takeout spot for years was actually a product of American soil? What if the intense spice that defines Chinese cooking in the global imagination never touched a wok in China until traders brought it from South America just a few centuries ago? The truth is, Chinese food, as the world knows it, is one of the most successful origin story myths in history. Much of what you think is ancient and authentic was actually born of survival, adaptation, and accidental genius. This is Origin_Plate, and today we are decoding the 10 foods that prove China didn't invent what you think it did. 1. Fortune cookies. The California Secret fortune cookies are so synonymous with Chinese dining that we assume they arrived with the first wave of immigrants. But these golden folds of wisdom were actually born in early 20th century California. The most likely architect was Makoto Hagawara, a Japanese landscape designer in San Francisco who served them at a tea garden around 1914. Based on a Japanese temple cracker called Sura Senbei, the recipe stayed firmly on American soil. China had never even heard of them until American tourists started asking for them. Today, 3 billion are made annually, mostly in Brooklyn. It is the most successful food myth ever sold. 2. Chop suey, the scraps of survival. In the late 1800s, chop suey was the face of exotic dining in New York and San Francisco. Millions believed they were tasting an ancient delicacy, but the dish was actually a miscellaneous leftover stew cobbled together by Chinese immigrant laborers. The name literally means odds and ends in Cantonese. It was a survival dish dressed up with a borrowed identity to feed hungry Americans. By the time Chinese visitors were served it in the US, they didn't recognize it at all. It never existed in China. It was a reinvented home for people who had left theirs behind. 3. General Tso's chicken, the Manhattan masterpiece. The crimson, sticky balance of sweet heat that defines General Tso's chicken was not born in the Hunan province. It was created in New York City in the early 1970s by chef Peng Changquei, who had fled the Communist Revolution. He named it after a 19th century general as a nod to regional pride. But the sugar-heavy flavor profile was pure American adaptation. When Peng finally introduced the dish to China, food critics were baffled, finding it far too sweet and heavy for traditional Hunanese palates. One man's nostalgia, filtered through a New York kitchen, became the best-selling Chinese dish in U.S. history. 4. Egg rolls, the New York hybrid. The thick, bubbly, deep-fried cylinder we call an egg roll is an American invention from the 1930s. Its ancestor is the delicate Chinese spring roll, made with thin rice paper and lightly fried. But on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, the wrapper thickened, the filling became pork and cabbage heavy, and the frying got deeper. Popularized by restaurateur Lum Fong around 1935, the egg roll became the universal opening act of the Chinese-American meal, a dish that the mainland never actually cooked. 5. Chow mein, the Western translation. Chow mein has genuine roots. The name comes from chow mein, meaning stir-fried noodles. But the version in your takeout container is a different species. The version we eat, often heavy on bean sprouts, celery, and cornstarch-thickened sauce, was reshaped by Cantonese immigrants in 19th century California. They had to improvise with local ingredients they could actually find in the West. In places like Butte, Montana, the dish became so embedded that it developed its own regional style. It's a 4,000-year-old noodle tradition quietly reinvented by people trying to recreate a taste of home with what was available. 6. Kung Pao chicken, the banned classic. Unlike others on this list, Kung Pao chicken is authentically Chinese, named after a 19th century governor of Sichuan whose title was Gong Bao, Palace Guardian. However, its history is a roller coaster. When during China's Cultural Revolution in the 1960s, the dish was actually banned as a symbol of imperial elitism. It survived in secret before re-emerging and traveling to America. In the US, the sauce got sweeter and the heat milder. Today, the US and China essentially cook two separate dishes that happen to share one legendary name. 7. Fried rice, the global remix. Fried rice is ancient, existing since the Sui dynasty, 600 AD, as a practical way to use day-old dried-out rice. But the Hawaiian, Thai, or American versions we see today are entirely separate inventions. In Hawaii, Spam entered the wok after World War II. Military supplies flooded the islands. In Thailand, fish sauce replaced soy. Even the wok hei, or breath of the wok, that defines authentic Chinese fried rice is rarely found in the Western kitchen, and where the dish has been adapted to be sweeter and heavier for local tastes. 8. Dim sum, the Hong Kong ceremony. We think of dim sum as an ancient Silk Road tradition, and while it started there in roadside tea houses, the elaborate trolley and steam basket experience was actually codified in mid-20th century Hong Kong. Originally, these were simple snacks known as yum cha, drinking tea, meant to provide weary travelers and farmers with a quick energy boost. However, as the population in Hong Kong boomed post-Wobituan, tea houses became the city's social living rooms. The introduction of the rolling cart was a logistical genius move, allowing waiters to navigate cramped, multi-story dining rooms while keeping the delicate dumplings piping hot. This era saw the perfection of the big three: har gao, shrimp dumplings, su mai, pork dumplings, and char siu bao, BBQ pork buns, setting a global standard for craftsmanship. The translucent pleats of a shrimp dumpling became a test of a chef's skill, requiring exactly 10 to 12 folds to be considered professional. When this culture moved to San Francisco or London, it brought the Hong Kong version with it. What we call authentically Chinese is often, more accurately, authentically Hong Kong. 9. Sweet and sour pork. The translation. China has a long tradition of balancing sugar and vinegar, but the neon orange, pineapple-studded version that conquered the West was engineered for foreign palates. Traditional versions, like the tangku dishes of Jiangsu, utilize black rice vinegar and rock sugar to create a subtle, dark, and complex glaze. However, Cantonese immigrants in 19th century Britain and America realized that Western diners found authentic Chinese vinegar too sharp and unfamiliar. To bridge this gap, chefs began using tomato ketchup and canned pineapple juice to provide a brighter, more consistent acidity that appealed to the meat and sweet preferences of their new neighbors. Pineapple, which appears in virtually no traditional mainland Chinese cooking, entered the dish purely because Westerners associated it with exotic luxury and tropical indulgence. This wasn't a case of losing culture. It was a brilliant survival tactic by immigrant entrepreneurs who used local ingredients to make their heritage accessible. They weren't dumbing it down, they were translating it for a new audience. 10. Or chili peppers, the greatest trade Sichuan food. Without chili peppers seems impossible. That volcanic heat feels like it must be part of China's ancient DNA. However, all chili peppers are native to the Americas. They didn't reach China until the late 16th or early 17th century, arriving via European traders through the coastal ports of the southeast. For thousands of years, the numbing sensation of Sichuan cooking came exclusively from the Sichuan peppercorn, which is actually a citrus berry, combined with the bite of ginger and heavy mustard. When the chili finally arrived, it found a perfect home in the humid Sichuan basin, where traditional medicine believed spicy food helped expel dampness from the body. It detonated across the region so completely that within 100 years, it seemed as if it had always been there, eventually leading to the creation of the iconic Debunked fermented bean chili paste that defines the cuisine today. It is a stunning example of how quickly a foreign ingredient can become a national identity. The most Chinese flavor in the world actually came from the other side of the planet. 10 foods, 10 stories, and 10 moments where the world told itself a comfortable lie. Food history isn't a straight line. It's a messy collision of migration, survival, and reinvention. Every dish you think you know has a secret. Which of these origin plate facts shocked you the most? Tell us in the comments. Stay hungry, stay curious, and we'll see you at the next map.